Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Carpenter. I wanted to come today and begin reading a book from the I Survive series. I know many of you enjoy reading those, and I do too. This one is about the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Oops, there you go. In 1980. Okay, Mount St. Helens is a volcano, and it really did happen in 1980. Now, this is what we would call realistic fiction. It is based on a true story, but the individuals in the story uh, did not really live. So that's why it's realistic fiction. It is based on something in real life. Okay, so we're going to start reading this book. This book is very special to me. It was donated to my classroom library by John Thomas Draper. That's Miss Draper's son from kindergarten. Okay, and it says I Survived the Eruption of Mount St. Helens, 1980, by Lauren Tarshis, maybe. I'm not sure about how to pronounce her last name. But here we go with Chapter 1. Sunday, May the 18th, 1980, 8:32 a.m., Mount St. Helens, Washington State. For more than 100 years, Mount St. Helens had been quiet, beautiful mountains surrounded by forest. Hikers climbed its winding trails, skiers raced down its snowy slopes, children splashed in its crystal clear lakes. Except this peaceful mountain was not a mountain. It was a dangerous volcano, a deadly cone filled with molten rock and poisonous gases. And soon it would explode with the power of 10 million tons of dynamite. In the minutes before the eruption, 11-year-old Jesse Marlowe and his best friends Eddie and Sam were in a forest near Mount St. Helens. The day was warm and bright, the sky brilliant blue. Ooh, looks kind of like today if you've been outside. St. Helens rose up over them, its perfect triangle peak sparkling with snow, and then kaboom! Automatopoeia. Suddenly, Jess was in the middle of the deadliest volcanic eruption in American history. She watched in horror as the sky turned pitch black. A blizzard of ash poured down, swirling up her nose and making it almost impossible to breathe. Hot rocks pelted like bullets, simile, shooting down from the sky. Then whoosh! A blast of wind exploded out of the mountain, a white hot mix of ash and gas and shards of rock. It raced down the mountain at jet speeds. Now, that's hyperbole, burning everything in its path. The heat hit Jess and the boys, knocking them down. Jess felt as though she would burst into flames. Every breath was like inhaling fire. But the terror was just beginning. The eruption had shattered the mountain, and now a 50-mile wide avalanche of rock and mud and melted ice was taking aim at the valley below. It grew larger by the second. It snatched up trees and boulders. It tore away bridges and swept away houses. It would destroy everything and everyone in its path. Now, Chapter 2. 8 weeks earlier, Sunday, March the 23rd, 1980, Spirit Lake Memorial Highway, Washington State. Skeleton Woman is not real, Jess said. She's totally made up, Sam agreed. Can we please stop talking about Skeleton Woman, said Eddie, Sam's twin brother. You're giving me the creeps. It was Sunday morning, and Jess and the Rowan twins were riding in the back of a red Ford pickup truck. Mr. Rowan, the twins' dad, was up front singing loudly along to his favorite disco song. They were about 20 miles from their hometown of Cedar, Washington, rumbling along a winding highway. The road was lined with trees, a forever stretch of forest and rolling hills. They were heading to the Rowans' fishing cabin, which was on Loomis Lake, up closer to Mount St. Helens. It wasn't fishing season quite yet, but Mr. Rowan wanted to get the cabin ready. He was happy to have Jess and the twins tagging along for the day. Looking across at the twins, Jess saw two matching buzz-cut heads, four identical green eyes, and about 10,000 freckles. When they were little, Jess would have done anything to look more like them. She'd blown out her birthday candles with a wish for green eyes instead of brown. She'd even drawn magic marker freckles onto her pale skin. But Jess had outgrown that, and anyway, the twins weren't so exactly alike. Eddie was quiet and serious. Sam never shut up, and he had a fearless streak that sometimes got all three of them into big trouble. Like today, for example. Mr. Rowan didn't know the real reason that Jess and the boys wanted to go up to the mountain. Skeleton Woman. She was an evil woman from a scary old story, kind of like the witch from Hansel and Gretel, but worse, because she supposedly lived around here. She had wild white hair and coal black eyes and rusted metal claws instead of fingers. According to an old legend, she lurked in the dark forest that covered the slopes of St. Helens, the mountain that rose up over this whole valley. She wandered through the woods, searching for children whose bones she used to make her magic powders. It was just a creepy story, the kind you told while you were roasting marshmallows or huddled together at a slumber party. But some of the kids in their school actually believed Skeleton Woman was real. One girl, Missy Samuels, swore Skeleton Woman lived in a broken down shack in the woods near Loomis Lake. That whole part of this forest is cursed, Missy said, flicking one of her curls. It had been last Wednesday, and they were on the blacktop at school. Eddie had been impatiently bouncing a red rubber ball. Usually they played kickball at recess, but Missy wouldn't stop yakking about you skeleton woman. Jess used to be good pals with Missy, but that was about 10 million years ago, before Missy's dad got an important new job at the lumber company. Now Missy lived in the biggest house in Cedar, the only big house in Cedar. Skeleton Woman is in those woods, Missy went on. My dad says some of his workers saw her, and now they refuse to step foot in that part of the forest. That's not true, Jess said. They saw her, Jess, Missy insisted. Her clothes were covered with blood. It's just a dumb story, Eddie scoffed. If you're so sure, maybe you should go to that shack yourselves. This was starting to sound like a dare. Fine, Sam blurted out. We'll go. Jess and Eddie had shared a look that meant, please tape Sam's mouth shut now. Too late. Fine. You better bring a camera because I'll need proof. Within minutes, she'd blabbed to everyone, making it sound like a big joke, with Jess and the twins as the punchline. So, of course, they couldn't back out. Which is why they were here on the cold morning, sitting in the back of the red pickup truck. But what if she's actually there? Eddie asked. Then Jess will take her picture. Jess gripped her backpack where she'd put Dad's camera. She felt a pang of guilt. The camera had been Dad's prized possession, and Jess knew that Mom wouldn't want Jess taking it into the woods. But Jess would be extra careful. She'd even wrapped it in a plastic bag in case it rained. How will I take her picture? Jess asked. Mrs. Skeleton Woman, say cheese, Sam said in a high voice. Eddie leaned forward and bared his teeth like a skeleton. Cheese, he growled. A glob of egg glistened on one of his teeth. They all burst out laughing, and Jess's honking giggle mixed with Twins' loud snorts. It took them all a few minutes to calm down. Eddie's face got serious again. You guys aren't scared, are you? Nah, no way, Jess lied. Of course they were scared. Who knew what they would find in that shack? Even if they didn't find Skeleton Woman in her bones, there could be a bear or 1,000 rats. Jess shuddered. But fear was better than other feelings, wasn't it? Like missing her dad, who died in a car accident just 2 years ago. Or worrying about Mom, who seemed so lonely and worked way too hard. Those sad thoughts were always flickering at the edge of Jessie's mind, so it was good to have other things to think about, like an evil old witch with smoldering black eyes. All right, we'll be back later for chapters 3 and 4.